The void of space offered little comfort to Neri as she gazed through the viewing port of her small diplomatic vessel. Stars glimmered coldly against the darkness, indifferent to her mission or its outcome. As a representative of the Velaran High Council, she had grown accustomed to the dangers of interstellar diplomacy, but this journey through disputed territory made her four-chambered heart beat with unusual intensity. "Ambassador, we're detecting unusual energy signatures ahead," reported the pilot, his scales shifting to a worried blue-green hue. "Recommend altering course." Neri straightened her ceremonial robes and moved toward the command center. "We cannot deviate. The peace talks are time-sensitive, and this is the only approved corridor." The two escort ships flanking her diplomatic vessel maintained formation as they continued forward. Velaran military discipline was legendary, but it provided little reassurance as they ventured deeper into the contested region between their empire and Krell territory. The attack came without warning. 3 Krell warships materialized from behind a small moon, their distinctive barbed silhouettes unmistakable against the starfield. Energy weapons lashed out, catching the lead escort vessel midship and tearing it apart in a silent explosion. "Evasive maneuvers," Neri ordered, grabbing a support rail as the ship lurched violently. "Send emergency signals to the High Council." The second escort vessel moved to protect her ship, absorbing a devastating barrage that reduced it to drifting debris within moments. Her pilot worked frantically at the controls, but a direct hit to their propulsion system sent them spinning. "Communications are down," reported her aide, blood seeping from a gash on his forehead. "Life support damage, main power failing." Neri watched in horror as the Krell ships methodically targeted her vessel's key systems. This was no random attack. They knew exactly who she was and what she carried. The diplomatic codes and peace proposals in her neural implant would be invaluable to the Krell war effort. Another hit rocked the ship, sending Neri crashing against the bulkhead. The sickening crack of her exoskeleton breaking barely registered through her shock. Around her, the remaining crew members lay motionless, their scales already fading to the gray of death. Warning lights bathed the command center in pulsing red as automated systems announced multiple hull breaches. The ship's artificial gravity flickered, causing loose objects to float momentarily before crashing down again. Dragging herself to the emergency beacon, Neri activated the distress signal with bloodied fingers. The odds of anyone receiving it in this remote sector were negligible, but protocol demanded the attempt. More importantly, the signal would trigger the ship's data purge, preventing the Krell from obtaining the diplomatic information. Through the damaged viewing port, she could see the Krell ships breaking off their attack, likely assuming no survivors remained. They would return soon with boarding parties to salvage the wreckage and search for her neural implant. As the ship's systems continued to fail around her, Neri found herself drifting toward a dense asteroid field. The navigation system sparked and died, leaving the vessel at the mercy of gravitational forces. In Velaran culture, there was no concept of an afterlife, only the memory of one's contributions to the collective. Neri closed her eyes, preparing for the void. Her only regret was failing to deliver the peace proposal that might have ended the generational conflict. The stories she had heard about humans crossed her mind briefly. Strange, emotional beings from a distant part of the galaxy who supposedly helped others without calculation of benefit. Mere myths, she thought, as consciousness began to fade. No sentient species acted without self-interest. As darkness closed in, Neri's ship tumbled deeper into the asteroid field, its distress beacon sending a weak signal into the seemingly empty expanse of space. The mining vessel Horizon's Edge cruised at half speed through the outer reaches of the Cygnus asteroid belt. Its hull, marked with patches and repairs from years of hard service, gleamed dully in the light of a distant star. Inside the bridge, Captain Jack Reynolds studied the sensor readings with growing interest. "What do you make of this signal, Greg?" Jack asked, gesturing to the communications officer. Greg Parker adjusted his headset and frowned. "It's faint, sir. Definitely a distress beacon, but not any configuration in our database." Could be military, maybe even alien. Alien. First Officer Megan Davis stepped closer to the console. We're way off the charted trade routes. No registered alien vessels should be in this sector. Jack scratched his beard thoughtfully. The Horizon's Edge was a simple mining vessel with a crew of 12, not equipped for military encounters or first contact scenarios. Yet something about the weak, pulsing signal tugged at his conscience. Plot an intercept course, Jack finally ordered. Captain, Megan protested. Protocol states we should report unknown signals to Fleet Command and continue our assigned route. And by the time Fleet gets here, whoever sent that signal will be long dead, Jack replied firmly. We're changing course. The ship's engines hummed as they altered direction, pushing deeper into the asteroid field. Navigation Officer Sam Wilson called out warnings as they maneuvered through the slowly tumbling rocks. Signal source located, Greg announced after 20 tense minutes. Sir, it's a ship, heavily damaged. Design unlike anything I've seen before. The main view screen activated, showing a sleek vessel with elegant lines completely unlike human engineering. Its hull was punctured in multiple places, and it drifted listlessly between two large asteroids. Life signs? Jack asked. The ship's medical officer, Olivia Martinez, checked her scanner. One very faint reading. Not human. Can't tell much more from this distance. Jack made his decision. Prep a rescue team. Olivia, Sam, you're with me. Megan, you have the bridge. This is a bad idea, Jack, Megan warned. We don't know what's out there or what caused that damage. Noted, Jack replied, already heading toward the airlock. If we're not back in 30 minutes, follow protocol and get the ship out of here. The space between vessels was dark and silent as the three humans propelled themselves from their airlock to the damaged alien ship. Their helmet lights illuminated a scene of destruction. Weapon impacts had torn through the hull with surgical precision. This wasn't an accident, Sam muttered over the comm. Someone wanted this ship dead. They found an intact airlock and Olivia bypassed the alien controls, forcing the mechanism open. Inside, emergency lighting cast an eerie blue glow over twisted metal and floating debris. This way, Olivia said, following her scanner. Life sign is weak but stable. They pushed through the wrecked interior until they reached what appeared to be a command center. Floating in the minimal gravity was an unconscious form unlike anything they had seen before. Humanoid but with iridescent scale-like skin, 6-fingered hands, and a frame that suggested both strength and agility. Female, I think, Olivia said, scanning the alien. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and what looks like a neural implant at the base of the skull. She's dying, Jack. Jack looked at the alien's face. Despite the differences, he could see pain there. Something about her seemed dignified even in unconsciousness. Can we save her? He asked. Olivia hesitated. Maybe, but not here. We'd need to take her back to our ship, and I have no idea if our medical equipment is compatible with her physiology. We can't just leave her, Sam said quietly. Jack nodded. Secure her for transport. Carefully. As they gently moved the alien into their transport stretcher, the ship groaned around them, systems failing further. Whatever hit this ship might still be out there, Sam warned. Jack looked once more at their unconscious find. Then we better move fast. No one deserves to die alone in the dark. Consciousness returned to Neri in waves of pain. Her inner eyelids fluttered open, revealing an unfamiliar ceiling of dull metal. The air carried strange scents. Sharp chemical odors mixed with something organic and unknown. Gravity felt wrong, slightly stronger than she was accustomed to. Every instinct screamed danger. She tried to sit up, but found her body responding sluggishly. Looking down, she saw unfamiliar devices attached to her injured arm and chest. Panic surged through her as she realized her diplomatic robes had been removed and replaced with some kind of simple garment. A door slid open, and Neri froze. The creature that entered walked on 2 legs, but was unlike any species she had encountered. No scales, strange coloration, and exposed skin with patches of fur on its head. It carried something in its hands and made soft vocalizations. "You're awake. Try not to move too much," Olivia said, approaching slowly with her medical scanner. "You have several fractures we've stabilized." Neri's translator implant was damaged, rendering the sounds meaningless. She pressed herself against the wall, ignoring the pain shooting through her body. Her hand instinctively moved to her side, where her ceremonial dagger would normally be, finding nothing. Olivia noticed the defensive posture and stopped, raising her empty hands. "It's okay. You're safe here." The door opened again, and a larger creature entered. Male, Neri guessed from the physical differences. This one moved with authority. "I'm Captain Jack Reynolds," he said, pointing to himself. "Jack." Neri studied him warily. The creature, Jack, mimicked the gesture toward her. Understanding the primitive attempt at communication, Neri lightly touched her chest. "Neri." Her voice sounded raspy, even to her own ears. Jack smiled, revealing blunt teeth. "Not predatory," Neri noted with slight relief. Olivia approached again, this time more slowly, and held up a small device. "Medical scanner," she explained, making a motion across her own body to demonstrate. Neri reluctantly allowed the scan, watching their reactions carefully. The female creature seemed concerned by the readings. "Fascinating physiology," Olivia murmured to Jack. "Four-chambered heart, but positioned differently than ours. Reinforced skeletal structure similar to an exoskeleton. And something embedded in her brainstem, possibly technological." Jack nodded and turned his attention back to Neri. He moved to a screen on the wall and activated it, showing a star map. He pointed to their current location, then to the damaged ship where they had found her. Neri understood. She was on their vessel. The realization that aliens had rescued her was disorienting. In Velaran culture, such actions would only be performed with expectation of significant compensation. "Why?" she asked, knowing they couldn't understand but needing to ask anyway. A third creature entered, this one carrying a tray of various items. Greg set down several containers of water and different foods, unsure what might be compatible with alien biology. "Thought our guest might be hungry," he explained. Neri eyed the offerings suspiciously. Poison, a test, or genuine sustenance. Jack gently pushed one container of water toward her, then took a different one and drank from it himself to demonstrate it was safe. The simple gesture of drinking, a universal need, somehow bridged the gap between them more effectively than words could have. "We found your ship badly damaged," Jack explained slowly, miming explosions. "Do you know who attacked you?" Neri watched his hands form shapes, suggesting weapons firing. She understood the question and cautiously formed her hands into the distinctive shape of a Krell warship. Jack frowned, not recognizing the configuration. Olivia approached with a tablet. "Draw it," she suggested, offering the device to Neri. Neri hesitantly took the tablet and sketched the barbed silhouette of a Krell attack vessel. She added quick drawings of her own diplomatic ship and the two escort vessels. She wasn't alone, Jack observed, but she was the only survivor. Neri's scales shifted color slightly as grief and duty warred within her. These strange beings had saved her life, yet they knew nothing of the danger they now faced by harboring her. The Krell would be hunting. The soft hum of the Horizon's Edge engines provided a constant backdrop as Jack stared at the tactical display. 3 unidentified vessels had appeared at the edge of their sensor range, moving in a search pattern that was too deliberate to be coincidental. "They're looking for something," Jack said, pointing to the screen. "Or someone." Megan crossed her arms. "They appeared exactly 7 hours after we rescued our guest. That's not a coincidence, Jack." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Mining vessels weren't built for confrontations. "Captain," Greg called from communications, "I'm picking up scan pulses. They're searching on the same frequency as our guest's distress beacon." Jack's jaw tightened. They're tracking her. In the medical bay, Neri had progressed remarkably in the past few hours. Her species apparently healed faster than humans, and Olivia's careful treatment had accelerated her recovery. Through rudimentary drawings and gestures, she had managed to communicate the basics of her situation. The door to the medical bay slid open as Jack entered. Neri was sitting upright, studying a basic language primer Olivia had created for her. "We have company," Jack said, showing her the tactical display. Neri's scales flashed a pale blue, a reaction Jack had learned indicated fear. She pointed at the moving dots and made a slashing motion across her throat. "Yeah, I figured they weren't friendly," Jack said grimly. "The same ones who attacked you." Neri nodded emphatically. Jack called the bridge. "All hands meeting in 5 minutes. And bring Alan." 10 minutes later, the crew gathered in the conference room. Alan Foster, the ship's engineer, scratched his head as Jack explained the situation. "So let me get this straight," Alan said. "We've rescued an alien diplomat who was being hunted by another alien species, and now they're after us too." "That's about the size of it," Jack confirmed. "We should turn her over," one crew member suggested. "This isn't our fight." Neri, who had been brought to the meeting, didn't need a translator to understand that remark. Her posture stiffened. Jack shook his head. "That's not happening." "Then what's the plan?" Megan asked. "We can't outrun them. Our engines weren't designed for speed." Alan tapped his fingers on the table. "Maybe we don't need to outrun them. We just need to hide." He pulled up a star chart. The Carver Nebula is less than 8 hours away at full burn. The mineral content would mask our signature. It would also blind our sensors, Megan pointed out. "Better blind than dead," Alan replied. Neri had been studying the star chart intently. She suddenly pointed to the nebula and nodded vigorously, then made a motion with her hand suggesting the pursuing ships wouldn't follow. "You know something about this nebula?" Jack asked. Neri sketched quickly on her tablet, showing the enemy ships avoiding the nebula region. "They're afraid of it," Greg realized. "Or something in it." Jack considered their options. "Alan, how long would it take to modify our shields to withstand whatever's in that nebula?" "Depends on what it is," Alan said. "But I could reinforce them against most radiation types in about 4 hours." "Do it," Jack ordered. "Gray, keep monitoring their search pattern. Megan, plot our course for the nebula, but keep us in the asteroid field as long as possible for cover." As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Neri approached Jack. She pointed to herself, then made a gesture toward the engine room. "You want to help?" Jack asked. Neri nodded and held up her tablet. She had drawn a rough sketch of what looked like modifications to the ship's shield emitters. Alan examined the drawing. "That's actually brilliant. If this works, it would mask our engine signature completely." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Can you understand her design?" "The physics are universal, Captain," Alan said with growing excitement. "Her people might be more advanced than us, but math is math everywhere." Jack nodded to Neri. "Looks like you just earned your keep." 4 hours later, the pursuing vessels changed course, accelerating directly toward the horizon's edge. Their cover was blown. "They found us," Megan announced tensely. Jack took his captain's chair. "All hands, battle stations." "Alan, is that shield modification ready?" "Just finished, Captain, with our guest's help." "Then take us into the nebula," Jack ordered. "Full power." The horizon's edge surged forward, its modified shields glowing faintly as it raced toward the swirling gases of the Carver Nebula, with 3 predatory ships in close pursuit. The eerie glow of the Carver Nebula's ionized gases painted the observation deck in shades of crimson and violet. Neri stood transfixed by the swirling clouds that surrounded the ship, her scaled hand pressed against the transparent viewport. Behind her, Jack entered quietly, carrying 2 containers. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, offering her one of the containers. Neri accepted it with a small nod. After several days aboard the human vessel, she had identified which foods her system could tolerate. The ship's doctor had created a special blend of nutrients that, while not delicious by Velaran standards, sustained her adequately. "Krell ships?" she asked in halting English, her voice carrying the distinct harmonic undertones of her species. Jack shook his head. "No sign of them for 12 hours. Your shield modifications worked perfectly. They can't track us in here." Thanks to Diane Wells, the communications specialist who had been working tirelessly with Neri, a rudimentary translation system was now functioning. It wasn't perfect, but it allowed for basic conversation. "Why help me?" Neri asked, the question that had been bothering her since her rescue. "No, benefit for you." Jack looked surprised. "You needed help. That's reason enough." Neri's scales shifted color slightly, expressing confusion. "Not understand. All actions have purpose. Political gain, resources, information. Sometimes helping others is its own purpose," Jack said simply. This concept seemed to trouble Neri deeply. She switched to her tablet, where she could express more complex thoughts through the translation program Diane had developed. "In Velaran culture, all interactions are calculated exchanges." The translation read, "We do not have your concept of altruism. It is considered inefficient and potentially dangerous." "That sounds like a lonely way to live," Jack commented. Neri considered this. "Perhaps, but it has allowed our civilization to survive for 20,000 years without major internal conflicts. Every Velaran knows exactly what is expected in any exchange." The door slid open, and Olivia entered with several crew members who had become fascinated by their alien guest. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, "but we finished analyzing those medical scans, and we have some questions about Velaran physiology, if you don't mind." As Neri began explaining the basics of her biology, the quad-chambered heart, the semi-permeable scales that aided in respiration, the neural pathways that differed so dramatically from human ones, the humans listened with rapt attention. "And this implant at the base of your skull?" Olivia asked, pointing to a scanned image. Neri hesitated before responding. "Neural diplomatic package. Contains classified information. Reason Krell attacked my ship. They wanted what's in your head," Greg said. "That's why they're so determined to find you." Neri nodded. Information would change balance of power. Later, as the impromptu cultural exchange continued, crew members shared stories of Earth and human history. Neri was particularly puzzled by tales of human self-sacrifice and heroism. "You risk lives for strangers?" she asked after hearing about Coast Guard rescues during storms. "We do," Sam confirmed. "It's part of who we are." Neri processed this, her scales shifting through thoughtful colors. "Inefficient, but admirable." When asked about Velaran culture, Neri described their intricate social hierarchy based on contribution value, their architectural achievements that lasted millennia, and their mathematical advances that had allowed them to develop interstellar travel centuries before humans had left their planet. "Your species is young," she told them, "but unique. All other species we encountered think like Velarans. Calculate, measure, exchange. None would risk for stranger." "Is that why your people are at war with the Krell?" Diane asked. "Some exchange gone wrong?" Neri's scales darkened. "Krell believe in domination, not exchange. They take. They consume. Many species have fallen to them. And they want the information in your head to help them do that to your people," Jack concluded. "Yes," Neri admitted. "Peace proposal details. Defensive positions. Alliance possibilities with other species. Then we need to get you safely to your people," Jack said firmly. Neri studied him with her large compound eyes. "Why risk your ship, your crew, for me?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Jack answered simply. For the first time since her rescue, Neri's scales shifted to a warm golden hue, a color that none of the humans had seen before. "What does that color mean?" Olivia asked curiously. No translation in your language, Neri replied softly. Closest word perhaps, hope. The nebula's swirling gases thinned as the horizon's edge approached its outer boundary. For 3 days, they had navigated through the cosmic maze, making repairs and preparing for what might await them on the other side. Neutral station is 6 hours beyond nebula edge, Neri explained, pointing to the star chart where she had marked the location of a trading post frequented by multiple species. Jack nodded, studying the approach vector. Once we're there, you can contact your people. Yes, station has secure channels, she confirmed. Alan entered the bridge, wiping his hands on a rag. Engines are running at 90%, Captain. Best I can do without a proper space dock. It'll have to be enough, Jack replied. Prepare for nebula exit. As the final wisps of glowing gas parted before them, the sensors came back online at full strength. The alarm sounded immediately. Contact, Greg shouted. 3 vessels, no 4, directly in our exit path. The main view screen activated, showing the distinctive barred silhouettes of Krell warships arranged in a blockade formation. They predicted our exit point, Megan said grimly. Neri's scales paled to an ashen gray. Not random patrol. They waited for us. The communication system crackled to life with an incoming transmission. The face that appeared on the screen was vaguely reptilian with multiple eye ridges and armored plates, a Krell commander. Unidentified vessel, the commander spoke in heavily accented standard galactic language. You harbor a Velaran fugitive. Surrender her immediately or be destroyed. Jack stepped forward. This is Captain Jack Reynolds of the Earth mining vessel, Horizon's Edge. We have granted asylum to a diplomatic envoy who was illegally attacked in neutral space. The Krell commander's multiple eyes narrowed. Your species is unknown to us. This is not your conflict. Surrender the Velaran, and you may proceed. That's not going to happen, Jack stated firmly. The transmission cut off abruptly. They're powering weapons, Greg reported, his voice rising. Jack turned to his crew. Evasive maneuvers. Alan, give me everything those engines have got. The mining vessel lurched as it changed course, barely avoiding the first volley of Krell energy weapons. But the ship shuddered violently as a glancing hit struck their aft section. Direct hit to Cargo Bay 3. Sam called out. Hull breach contained, but we lost the mining charges stored there. Jack spun toward Neri. These Krell ships, do they have any weaknesses? Neri moved to the tactical station, her fingers flying across the controls. Sensor nodes here and here, she indicated on the display. Without them, weapons cannot lock target. We're not armed, Megan reminded everyone. This is a mining vessel. Jack's eyes lit up. But we have mining tools. He turned to Alan. The magnetic grapples we use for asteroid capture, could they disrupt their sensor nodes? Alan considered for a moment. If we recalibrate them to emit an electromagnetic pulse instead of a steady field, maybe. Do it, Jack ordered. Sam, what about the remaining mining charges? We have 12 left in Bay 2. Remote detonation capable. Jack nodded. Prepare to deploy them like mines. We'll need precise timing. As Alan and his team raced to modify the equipment, the Krell ships moved into an attack formation. They're coming around for another pass, Greg warned. Hold course, Jack commanded. Wait for them to commit. The lead Krell warship accelerated toward them, its weapons charging for a killing blow. Now, Alan, Jack shouted. The modified grapples fired, sending powerful electromagnetic pulses toward the Krell vessel's sensor arrays. The effect was immediate. The warship's precision fire became erratic energy beams shooting wide of their target. Mining charges, Jack ordered next. Sam deployed the explosive devices, which scattered into the space between the ships. As the confused Krell vessels maneuvered through the field, Sam triggered the detonations. The explosions weren't powerful enough to destroy the military vessels, but they created a massive debris field of superheated metal fragments that tore through the Krell ship's more vulnerable components. Their main propulsion is damaged, Greg reported excitedly. Neri stood watching the tactical display, her scales shifting to colors no human had seen before. Never seen Krell defeated with mining tools. "We're not defeated yet," Jack cautioned as alarms blared again. The remaining Krell ships regrouped, more cautious now but still blocking their path to the neutral station. "One more trick," Jack said, turning to Neri. "How deep can Krell ships dive into a gravity well?" Neri understood immediately. Not as deep as smaller vessel. Their shield harmonics fail under extreme gravitational stress. Jack pointed to a small brown dwarf star nearby, plot a course skimming the gravity well. "As close as we can get without being pulled in." "That's insanely risky," Megan protested. "So is staying here," Jack replied. "Do it." As the horizon's edge accelerated toward the dwarf star, the Krell ships followed in pursuit, determined not to lose their prey. The neutral station convergence point loomed ahead, its massive ring structure rotating slowly against the backdrop of stars. After their daring escape through the brown dwarf's gravity well, the horizon's edge had limped the final distance with failing engines and depleted shields. Two of the Krell ships had been pulled into the dwarf star's crushing gravity when they attempted to follow, while the remaining vessels retreated to regroup. Jack stood on the bridge, exhaustion etched into his face as he guided his damaged vessel toward the docking bay. "Station Control has granted us emergency landing clearance," Greg announced. "And Captain, they say there's a Velaran diplomatic vessel waiting." Neri, who had been helping Alan stabilize the failing engine core, entered the bridge. Her scales had taken on a deep, rich blue that the crew had come to recognize as excitement. "My people received distress signal," she explained. "Sent ship immediately when they knew I survived." As the horizon's edge settled into the docking cradle with a groan of stressed metal, Jack turned to his crew. "I want to thank all of you," he said simply. "You risked everything for someone you didn't know, from a species you'd never met. I couldn't be prouder." Olivia gently treated a burn on Sam's arm. "Makes you wonder what the recruitment posters missed. Join the mining corps. Fight alien warships with mining tools." Laughter rippled through the weary crew. The docking tube extended, and the airlock cycled open. 3 Velarans entered, their formal attire marking them as officials. Their scales shifted through patterns of surprise and disbelief as they saw Neri standing among humans. The tallest Velaran stepped forward. "Ambassador Neri, the High Council feared you lost." His gaze swept over the human crew. "These beings, they rescued you." "They did more than rescue," Neri replied in her native tongue. "They defended me against Krell pursuers at great risk to themselves. They are called humans." Jack stepped forward and offered a simple bow. "Captain Jack Reynolds of Earth, we're pleased to return Ambassador Neri to her people." The lead Velaran scales rippled with confusion. "What payment do you seek for this service?" "The Velaran High Council is prepared to offer considerable compensation." Jack shook his head. "No payment necessary. We did what anyone would do." The Velaran officials exchanged glances, their scales shifting through colors of disbelief. "The information I carried is intact," Neri told her people. "The peace proposal can proceed. But more importantly, I have discovered something that changes everything we thought we knew about interstellar relations." "What could be more important than the peace accords?" the lead official asked. Neri gestured toward the humans. "A species that acts without calculation of benefit. They saved me because they believed it was right, not because of what they might gain." In the days that followed, the neutral station buzzed with unprecedented activity. The Velaran Diplomatic Corps arranged formal meetings with the human crew, recording every detail of their unexpected first contact. Engineers from multiple species worked to repair the horizon's edge, fascinated by the improvised modifications that had allowed a mining vessel to escape Krell warships. 1 week after their arrival, a formal ceremony was held in the station's Grand Hall. Representatives from a dozen species gathered to witness the historic moment as Neri, now appointed as the first Velaran ambassador to Earth, presented Jack and his crew with a ceremonial recognition of alliance. For centuries, the balance of power in this sector has been maintained through careful calculation and mutual threat. Neri addressed the assembly. The Krell believed they could upset this balance through force. What they did not anticipate was a species that would act purely on principle. She turned to face Jack. Humans bring something new to our galaxy, not the strongest weapons or the fastest ships, but a concept that many of us had forgotten or never known. Compassion without purpose, help without expectation of return. Jack accepted the symbolic alliance token, a crystalline structure that captured and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. "We have much to learn from each other," he said simply. As the ceremony concluded, Neri approached Jack privately. Her scales now displayed a pattern he had never seen before. "What does that color mean?" he asked. "It is very rare among my people," she explained. "It means gratitude beyond calculation. I expected death, Jack Reynolds. Instead, I found a new future not just for myself, but for all our peoples." Beyond the viewport, stars shimmered like possibilities. The Krell threat remained, but something fundamental had changed in the balance of power. A mining vessel with no weapons had stood against warships and prevailed through ingenuity and determination. The story was already spreading through the trading routes and diplomatic channels. "Ready to go home?" Neri asked, looking at the repaired horizon's edge. "Not just yet," Jack replied with a smile. "I think we might have a diplomatic mission to complete first. Earth should hear about its new allies directly from those who made first contact." With the stars as their witness, human and Velaran stood side by side, facing a future neither could have imagined before a distress signal had brought them together in the darkness of space.